At this very moment, individuals with lesser abilities are achieving victory. What sets them apart? Their appearance of absolute certainty. They communicate without doubt. They conduct themselves as though everything belongs to them by right. Society accepts their claims. In contrast, you pause. You analyze excessively. You await perfect timing, ideal phrasing, optimal emotions. During your delay, others claim what should be yours. Self-assurance isn't merely a characteristic. It functions as artillery. Without wielding it, others deploy it against your interests. Machiavelli recognized this truth ages past. The audacious advance despite lacking expertise. The uncertain remain static, regardless of their brilliance. Authority doesn't favor excellence. It gravitates towards certainty. This presentation marks a pivotal moment. Not for inspiration, not for reassurance, for dominance. You'll discover methods to eliminate doubt, communicate like royalty, and operate like someone anticipating obedience. Pay attention carefully. Your vulnerability ends here. It faces replacement. Weakness wasn't your birthright. It became your conditioning. Through repetition, through rewards, through regulations, molded for compliance, shaped for seeking validation. Programmed to question, is this acceptable? What exists within you presently isn't masculine strength, it's servitude, shaped for pleasing, designed for surrender. A faithful hound that cowers at criticism and awaits authorization. That internal voice, the hesitant one, the overthinker, the premature apologizer. That isn't your true self. That's your internal subordinate. Unless you eliminate him, freedom remains impossible. Machiavelli never whispered. He declared. He refused to wait for comprehension. He moved and allowed others to follow. He never requested authority. He claimed it, understanding that petitioners lack worthiness. Your metamorphosis begins with reversal. When shrinking feels natural, expand instead. When explaining seems necessary, pause deliberately. When apologizing feels appropriate, maintain eye contact. Formidable confidence doesn't emerge from readiness. It stems from actions your internal subordinate would never attempt. You accelerate your pace. You occupy territory. You cease agreeing automatically. You abandon softening your delivery. You articulate as though your statements are verdicts, not proposals. Confidence transcends mentality. It becomes essence. This essence forges through rebellion, not against society, but against your servile version. Your primary principle: eliminate what diminishes you. A concept, a pattern, an individual, destroy it. If hesitation emerges, confront directly. If weakness appears, reject completely. If likability seeking surfaces, mock it ruthlessly. Society promotes kindness, courtesy, and pleasantness. Yet the Machiavellian reality: pleasant men become instruments. They face usage, disposal, replacement. Influential men aren't pleasant. They're exact, deliberate, restrained, strategic. This begins by destroying that small voice seeking acceptance internally. Permission isn't required. Validation isn't necessary. Only one element matters: willingness to inspire fear, not from others, but from your previous identity. Once the servant dies, the sovereign emerges. Influential men don't announce arrivals loudly. They arrive carrying presence, not through vocalization, but through quietude, stillness, their gaze. Recognition isn't necessary. Likability isn't required. The atmosphere must shift upon your entrance. That's how men move when commanding space. Not through external confirmation, but through inherent behavior. Machiavelli understood royal court dynamics. True rulers weren't always crowned. Sometimes the silent corner figure held power. When he spoke, entire courts listened intently. Quietude equals dominance. Talking doesn't establish superiority, it creates predictability. The quiet individual poses threats because thoughts remain unknown. Entering rooms doesn't require permission seeking. You don't scan for approval. You observe, you absorb. Others rush proving themselves while you calculate strategically. Your stance communicates before words emerge. Movement stays deliberate, not from uncertainty, but from unhurried confidence. Predators don't rush unless striking time arrives. Until then, they observe, composed, prepared. Most people don't recognize their speed, their rapid speech, their frequent interruptions, because they're impressing others, because judgment still governs them. When commanding rooms, speech isn't for impression, it's for decisions. Every phrase carries finality. Every word sounds conclusive. Listening patterns change, challenges disappear. Calibration to your energy occurs. When others speak, you wait. You allow first attempts. You let them expose hunger, insecurity, vulnerability. Because initial speakers usually reveal fears. Once known, manipulation becomes possible. Energy isn't pursued. Gravity gets created. Confidence at these levels isn't about likability. It's about making others question their standing through proximity alone. You carry yourself victoriously. Not arrogantly, but like someone beyond competition because self-selection occurred. Respect is welcomed. Disrespect is preferable, because approval indifference represents power's ultimate form. If the room wasn't yours initially, departure ensures remembered ownership. Not through demands, but through natural assumption. Language transcends mere sound. It becomes weaponry. Most men communicate as though requesting existence permission. Recognition comes instantly, rising intonation, concluding sentences, nervous giggling, endless uncertainty markers, perhaps maybe unsure, but they speak apologetically for occupying space. That isn't communication, that's self-destruction. Machiavelli knew truth. Power exists not always in content, but delivery method. Speaking undeniably means people don't analyze words. They submit to certainty's weight. The mechanism, people aren't logical, they're emotional. Truth doesn't guide them, conviction does. Sounding sure creates assumed correctness. Hesitation suggests unworthiness for attention. Machiavellian vocal qualities, deliberate, composed, definitive. Speaking as though words aren't debatable, as though sentences are proclamations, speaking like someone expecting obedience automatically. Expert-filled rooms matter little. Decision-like delivery creates deference. Primary rule, sound conclusive, not preliminary. Here's what remains untold. Frequent speech isn't respect's requirement. Actually, excessive talking provides decoding opportunities, challenges, or worse, fear elimination. Speak sparingly, mean extensively. When speaking, eliminate gentleness. No padding, no explanations, no apologies. Never say, just saying. Could be wrong. Don't know if this makes sense, but these are weakness escape routes. Burn them completely. State intentions and maintain position. Let others handle subsequent silence. Because silence following strong statements wields power. It dares challenges. Most won't attempt. Why? Fear of additional responses. Understand this. Vocal tone carries true messages. Words provide surface level. But tone, your calm, grounded, intentional tone, reveals hierarchical positioning exactly. Rising requires pitch lowering, tempo slowing, nervous energy removal. Sound like someone with nothing proving and everything controlling. Sound like decision-makers expecting world alignment. Conversations aren't won through volume. Victory comes through words feeling factual, not suggestive. Ruler communication, general speech patterns, exiled kings speaking before throne reclamation. Challenge responses, never defend. Redirect instead. Don't argue, don't explain, don't justify. Simply state I disagree, or preferably that's incorrect. then continue forward. Refusing debate signals something terrifying. Your reality isn't negotiable. Room control without voice raising. Confidence isn't volume, it's gravitational force, it's invisible word weight. The assumption that speech demands listening. Room presence should register, not through noise, not through arrogance, through unshakable certainty. Rightness isn't the goal. Speaking like wrongness is impossible. Hearing isn't pursued. Speaking like agreement indifference, because eventual agreement is inevitable. That represents power. From this moment forward, this defines your communication. Or maintain silence. Confidence without control becomes decoration. Tall walking, eloquent speaking, authoritative movement are possible. But sentence-triggered reactions expose powerlessness. Exposure, not strength. Most men fail here. Presence mastery occurs. Speech mastery develops. But emotions remain public property. Disrespect whispers create reactions. Compliments cause softening. Silence triggers spiraling. Freedom requires mastering invisible warfare, internal mental battles, beginning with identity rewiring. Machiavelli understood power court dynamics. Enemy fear wasn't his concern. Dependency fear was, emotional or otherwise. Affection wasn't trusted. Control was. Because knowing your triggers reveals pressure points. Known pressure points eliminate danger. You become manageable. Manageable men face disposal when usefulness expires. Transformation involves stopping reactive behavior, becoming calculating instead. Insults don't prompt explanations. They trigger observation. Data extraction. What do they seek from you? What hides behind insults? Praise doesn't create melting, it sparks analysis. Why compliment now? What's desired? Ignoring doesn't cause panic. It increases coldness. Silence becomes weaponry, not wounding. Psychological unreachability means this. Not emotionlessness. Unshakability. Feeling everything. Acting only when serving outcomes. Testing doesn't prompt lashing out. No visible discomfort appears. Why? Because minds aren't public spaces. They're fortresses. Entry requires permission. Manipulation ceases this way. Most men's control is laughably simple. Inadequacy claims trigger over-explanation. Amazement claims create chasing. Emotional withdrawal prompts reconnection, begging. This isn't power, this is programming. Code breaking becomes essential for avoiding tool status perpetually. Rewiring requires killing understanding needs. That's the root virus. Explanation desires, visibility wants, validation seeking. These create controllability. Eliminate them. Existence isn't for understanding, it's for strategic world manipulation. Surgical precision, silent operation, rejection, fear, elimination. Machiavellian minds don't chase acceptance, they control access. Invitation seeking isn't desired. Making people wonder about proximity loss is. Emotional reaction habits die. Emotions exist, but remain irrelevant unless weaponized. Anger becomes fuel. Insults become leverage. Doubts become silence. Results speak later. Powerful men develop this way, not robotic transformation, undeniable evolution. Because emotional immovability creates precision movement observation. Fear of next actions develops. Others chase peace and understanding. You pursue clarity and control. Because feelings don't matter to the world. Only projections receive responses. Certainty, direction, gravity. Unshakable identity creates danger. Not through violence. Not through volume. Through unreachability. Surrounding people test constantly. Praise attempts, ignoring strategies, temptation offers, nothing succeeds, consistency remains. Cold, composed, calculated. Eventually, manipulation attempts cease, because terrifying realization occurs. You represent immovable force. Final transformation represents this. Not posture, not speech, not appearance, but identity. Others no longer shape you. You shape rooms, you shape regulations, you shape outcomes. Understanding isn't required. Acceptance isn't necessary. Nothing is needed from anyone. Because now ownership belongs nowhere. That creates untouchable status. Rejection wounds weakness. For power it signals gifts. Messages from reality stating availability excess. Obviousness surplus. Desperation overflow. Excellent. Destruction targets become clear. Understanding this, rejection isn't personal, it's positional. People reject survivable losses. No responses mean perceived worthlessness. That's not insult, that's intelligence. Positioning knowledge emerges. Strike back preparation begins. When they're vulnerable, when you're untouchable. Step 1. Never display impact. Pain exhibition equals their victory. It's not about them. It's about legend building. Machiavellian minds don't panic at closed doors. They create room temperature drops. Rejection didn't occur. Access disqualification happened. Rejection exists only through acknowledgement, so reactions don't occur. Evolution does. Step 2. Presence withdrawal as weaponry. Taken for granted disappearances reveal weight, value recognition, exact rejection responses. Vanishing occurs, no explanations, no emotional farewells, strategic absence only. Void feelings develop while building continues. Machiavelli stated, men receive generous treatment or destruction. Because slight injuries prompt revenge, severe ones don't. So injury isn't inflicted. Irrelevance is created. Silence loudness exceeds words. Wonderment about destinations, distance traveled, access authenticity questions. Step 3. Narrative reframing. Rejection holds power only through chasing appearances. Story rewriting occurs, not for them, for yourself. Rejection didn't happen. Self-selection from inadequate games occurred. No permission granted because behavior observation was ongoing. Single opportunities provided power recognition proof. Failure occurred. Failure revealed everything necessary. Now vanishing occurs. Upgrading begins. Step 4. Rejection converts to control. Victory location identified. Rejection provides clarity. Most people experience confusion. Respect uncertainty, usage questions, fear, ambiguity. But rejection cuts fog blade-like. Blindness identification occurs. Powerless impact locations emerge. Yet, so refinement occurs, edge sharpening. Value amplification until ignored people must explain name mentions. Next approaches occur they will. Rejection isn't necessary. Evolution beyond reach occurred already. Control achieved, silent, permanent, elegant. Step 5. Comeback weaponization. Revenge never represents goals. Revenge exhibits emotion. Machiavellian power stays calculated. Retaliation attempts don't occur. Time handles everything. Reappearance occurs only when presence creates discomfort. When success visibility becomes unavoidable. When rejection sources observe your dominance in spaces they deemed inappropriate for you. Nothing gets said. No spite offered. No sarcasm displayed. No ego presented. Simple glances occur. Or better, no glances whatsoever. Because acceptance-seeking ended. Standard setting began. Final words. Rejection isn't defeat, it's testing, filtering. Fire revealing required coldness, required cuts, required abandonment. Remember this. Rejection didn't occur. Redirection happened. Toward versions not asking twice, not flinching, not waiting for selection. Now silence building begins. Force returns impossible to reject, even if desired. Reshaping occurred. Not inspiration, not motivation, rebuilding, inside-out transformation, self-doubt elimination, not through affirmations, through action. Readiness waiting ended, movement occurred, acting began, learning that perfection doesn't own power, boldness does. Rejection became fuel, approval chasing ceased. Now people feel losing you costs. Scarcity developed, strategy emerged, silence prevailed, notice occurred, room entry for acceptance ended. Ownership through presence begins, posture implementation, precision application, speaking for hearing concluded. Speaking occurs as disagreement becomes unaffordable. Above all, identity rewiring occurred, predictability ended. Easy movement ceased, unreachability achieved, emotional untouchability developed, provocation immunity, temptation resistance, shaking impossibility. Because ownership belongs nowhere now, that creates unforgettable status. Legend creation involves this, not noise, not fame, powerful silence, cold clarity, ruthless consistency. Transformation announcements aren't necessary. Feeling occurs. In walking, in tone, in absence, observation subject becoming. Former chasers become chased, former questioners become deciders, former approval seekers become standards. No, this transcended confidence, this represented dominance, mental, emotional, psychological. Fitting in isn't your purpose. Peace movement is. Room bending occurs. Memory haunting through silence. Because legends don't beg, they don't explain, they exist. World reshaping occurs around them. Final command, like this video if chasing ended. Subscribe if readiness exists for becoming uncontrollable, unpredictable, unforgettable men. Because this isn't self-help, this is warfare, and you became weaponry.